Assalamu alaikum and welcome to About Islam. I'm your host, Layla Abdullah-Poulos, and I'm so excited to be starting this podcast series with About Islam, where I get to interview some great Muslim scholars, activists, advocates, authors, influence across the board. And I'm really excited to have my guest today, Naima B. Robert. Naima is an author and a public speaker, and she recently organized this fabulous event for UK Black History Month, all October, the Black Muslim Rennaisance Family Festival. It's going to be a digital festival with all kinds of wonderful sessions, workshops, panels. I'm just really excited about it. Assalamu alaikum, Naima. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm doing really well, sis. Hope you're doing well.
This is not the first time that you've done a seminar series. You know, you've done wonderful writing seminar series, and you have writing seminars as well, right?
Yeah, we have online courses and we have coaching groups as well for Muslim writers. So, mashallah, that's been running since 2018. But I have to say, you know, organizing a festival over the whole month, every weekend, I think we've got about 50 speakers now, and like, I don't know, 30 events or something. It's a completely different animal, mashallah. It's a completely different undertaking. But alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Now, tell me, what inspired you to do this? I know that here in the United States, that Black Muslims are increasingly creating spaces for themselves so that they can highlight their unique cultural experiences and build and grow with each other, because not all Muslim spaces are safe for Black Muslims. So tell me, what inspired you to decide to do this digital event?
Well, this summer was, I think, a really big change for me personally, and I just wrote an article about this for a magazine here, where, you know, my parents are South African, my dad's white, my mom's Black. I grew up in Zimbabwe, came to the UK at 18, and, you know, in Zimbabwe I kind of never fit in because I was mixed race, and I'm not Zimbabwean. I don't speak the language. You know, it's not my culture. But it was like when I came to the UK, even though I'm mixed race and my parents are South African and I grew up in Zimbabwe, all of a sudden I have this new identity of being Black, right? So I ended up being the president of the African Caribbean Society. You know, I was involved in Pan-Africanist organizations, very much, you know, kind of getting in there with just mixing with all sorts of people who all had that same identity of Black, because, you know, when you come out of majority experience into a minority space, you embody the experience of the minority of that space. So so that was really really big change for me, and it's actually one of the things that made me not want to become Muslim, because in my mind Islam was for Arabs and Asians, and I wasn't prepared to give up my African identity in order to be part of a religion. And it was literally only when I went on this journey of discovery to Senegal and Guinea when I realized that Islam actually has no race, and that Islam has been in Africa for, you know, for so many years, for centuries, and that it was an integral part of their identity. That's when I was able to kind of like relax and just, you know, flow with it and read without prejudice, and then eventually embrace. But my journey was such that because I'm lighter skinned, the less African my hair and my dress was, because before I became Muslim, obviously I had natural hair, and then when I became Muslim I started wearing a head wrap, and then I started to wear hijab, and then abaya, and then half jilbab, until eventually I was wearing niqab. So it's like every step I took with my hijab took me further and further away from being recognized as part of the Black community. That's just my personal story. So this summer, as a result, I've been for the past 20 years a very racially ambiguous character. You've read my books, you know that I write about lots of different experiences, Somali, Asian, mixed race, whatever, yeah? But because of the niqab and because of my skin, people can't often place me.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she Black, mixed race, she Asian, she Arab, she white, what's the deal, right? So as a result, and I'm all for acknowledging my privilege in the sense that I can pass for anything, and therefore I'm welcome in a lot of different spaces. So publicly, I hadn't really ever spoken about Blackness and racism and things like that, because it just hadn't come up on my radar. That's my privilege. So now the summer happens, killing of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests, just this, although of course as an African, I know the history of Africa, I know the history of Africa and the diaspora, etc. I studied it at school, I've read on it, extensively. We come from an Africanist family. I had never been public about it. So if you go to my Instagram and you go back to this summer, that was the first time that I actually started speaking about race and prejudice and anti-Blackness and self-hate and, anti-Blackness and racism within the Muslim community, and really calling people out within the Muslim community. That was the first time that I had ever done that. That's me personally. And we started the virtual salon, where we invited, I invited the Black brothers and sisters that I knew to just come to a safe space to just talk about that intersection of Blackness and Muslimness in the face of everything that was happening. And so because we started that off, and it was such a beautiful healing space, and people can go watch the videos on YouTube, but it was such a beautiful healing space. And literally one day I woke up and I said, you know what, we should just gather all this awesomeness in one big festival and talk about everything. Talk about money, talk about kids, talk about interracial relationships, talk about deen, talk about mental health, talk about everything, right? And thus the Black Muslim Festival was born. And alhamdulillah, we are here today. It's going to be starting on Friday, inshallah. And Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick is our guest of honor. And of course, you're coming. And we've got just this amazing array of people who are all coming out to celebrate, commemorate, and build a stronger Black Muslim identity, and to continue the legacy, the very, very long legacy of Black Muslims showing up inside the Muslim community and outside of it.
Well, I think that it's a wonderful event, and I think that it's the thing that I really like about it is that something that has been happening over the past few years. Margaret Aziza with the Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative calls it the Black Muslim Atlantic, where it's increasing connections between Black Muslims in the United States and the UK and Africa, which I absolutely think is essential. Yeah. Because globally and historically in Muslim culture, not in Islam, not in the faith, but in Muslim culture, the people that practice the faith, there is this continual anti-Blackness and racism that Black Muslims have to deal with, in addition to the broad anti-Blackness and racism they have to deal with. And it impacts us in a lot of different ways. So I love the fact that there's so many different things going on and so many fabulous people. I mean, you have the Village Auntie, which I think is amazing. Okay, Habiba Kande. It's just like so many people in the UK, in the United States, and just like really kind of coming together. And I can't wait to see that. I know that like Habiba Kande has been here for the Black Muslim Psychology Conference that happens every year. But I just really think that it's one to see more and more connections between Black Muslims in the UK and the United States. I think it's foundational, and I think it's just really, really essential, because we need to create these spaces globally for ourselves. And we have very cultural distinctions when it comes to, like you said, family and wealth and health, and even creativity. We have very distinct experiences. And that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about your books. Now, the virtual salon and the Black Muslim Renaissance, okay? I know that October is Black History Month in the UK, okay? Now, how does Black History Month present itself in Muslim culture in the UK? Because I know in the United States, quite often, if it's not, to be honest, if it's not something that is organized by and hosted by Black Muslims, a lot of times it becomes like this cookie cutter event where it just really kind of highlights Bilal and maybe Malcolm X type of thing. So how does Black History Month present itself in the UK, in Muslim culture, and among Black Muslims and non-Black Muslims?
I think that's a really great question. And I think the Muslim community has only been engaging with Black History Month over the past couple of years. And there's a response from the Black Muslim community, which I have to say, the millennials in the UK are the Black Muslim millennials. And I'll say this openly, and they know because I'm always telling them this. The Black Muslim millennials in the UK, a lot of them, especially the prominent ones, are not reverts. They are born Muslims and they are often African. So when they come up in the space, it's a completely different vibe from us, you know, Gen Zs who, you know, kind of had to make, like, many of us are converts, many of us are reverts in the UK. Many have come from the Caribbean, some from Africa as well, but a lot, especially the kind of prominent ones and the very vocal ones, a lot of us from the Caribbean, right? And mainly reverts. So there isn't that kind of generational identity that you kind of carry in along with your Islam. You have your racial identity. A lot of us felt, especially in the 90s, that we had to choose. So when you became Muslim, it's almost like, you know, you're not Black anymore, that you kind of like leave that to the side. And now my generation, you hear some of the virtual salon conversations, my generation is now coming around to the idea that, hold on a second, there was no need for me to leave my Black identity, my history, my legacy, my roots behind when I became Muslim. And also, there is a lot of power and strength and beauty in my identity as someone of African descent. And so my generation are reclaiming it, but we're behind the millennials, because the millennials already 2 years ago, they were creating Black Muslim spaces, Black Muslim podcasts, Black Muslim TV shows. Hafsa Dabiri is one of the big proponents of this. She's done a lot with her Dabiri group. She's worked with other people as well who've been creating shows inside Black History Month and outside. So I would say that within the Muslim community, you've got Black Muslims doing things in Black History Month, and then past couple of years, the Muslim community has also put in maybe more of those cookie cutter events, I'd say, but they've been trying, you know, which is kind of better than they were doing before that. But I think one of the things that I'm curious about and I'm excited for people in the UK, non-Muslim, is that Black History Month has never included Muslims ever. But as I wrote in the article today, is Black Muslim history is Black history. Whether you go back to the richest man in the world, Mansa Musa, or the centers of Timbuktu, the knowledge centers, or the huge numbers of Muslims taken as slaves across the Atlantic, to Malcolm X, to Muhammad Ali, to even Ibtihaj Muhammad today, Black Muslims are part of Black history. So
I mean, the Caribbean, when you had the revolts, there were Muslims.
The Maroons, exactly.
Slaves revolting.
Yeah, those Maroons were on it. There was, I mean, Sylviane Diouf's book, I don't know whether you've read it. That should be required reading. That book is just, it's phenomenal. And really anyone in diaspora who hasn't heard of her or hasn't seen the book Servants of Allah, you should really try and get a copy and read it, because
it's a phenomenal book. Servants of Allah, you have Habiba Kande's Illuminating the Blackness.
That's it. Yeah.
Centering Black Narratives by Ahmed Mubarak. You know, there's some really great work out there that shows the connections between Islamic history and Black history. I mean, there's a lot of fusion there. And I think in the United States, when it comes to African Americans, the African American experience, because so many enslaved were Muslim, and because of the Black Muslim movement,
yes,
which
it's a different
really kind of like having that overlap, those intersections where civil rights and Islam and Black Muslims. And we did get pushback for a long time, because when you had the opening up of the borders because of the civil rights movement, and you had an influx of Muslim populations from overseas, you know, there were a few decades, I'd say at least 20 years, where it was okay. You know, you're not Black. You can't embrace your Blackness. Black people in America don't have a culture and everything like, oh yeah, oh,
Oh, wow,
yes,
really?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Really, just like in Muslim spaces, it was like really like this dampening down, and we wouldn't survive if we just allowed that to keep happening,
Yeah.
because I'm someone that's obviously Black, and I know what that means, being in an interracial relationship with multiracial children. Like, my children are your complexion and lighter.
Mm.
And I see what they go through, okay, when it comes to navigating their identities and their Blackness. You know, I've had people tell my daughter, "You're not Black." I've had Black people tell my daughter, "You're not Black." Okay, they didn't get a very good response. But I realized that we couldn't survive that way. So we had to push back. And I'm so glad that Black Muslims in the UK are pushing back in a positive way. I mean, it's not a matter of just, well, you can't tell me that I'm not Black. It's that, what does this mean for us? What does it mean for someone who entered into Islam and is Black and has embraced his faith, but now has an additional layer of the reality of what it means to be Black in Muslim culture?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does it mean for someone who grew up in Muslim culture, Black or not obviously Black? What do those experiences mean?
Yeah.
How can we share them with each other? And how can we move forward as a distinct culture? We can't, I feel like we're finally getting to the point where we realize how important it is not to, I hate to use the word erase, but ignore, but to embrace exactly what it is to me means to be Black and Muslim. It's not something that the Black Sahabas didn't dampen down their Blackness or anything like that. So I'm so glad that we're not doing it as well. And I mean, you have very distinct sessions that are going on that I'm like, yeah, I want to see these sessions, because there is something about being a Black Muslim family.
Yeah, for
okay.
Sure. 100%. 100%. Yeah. And I think what I'm seeing, and I could be wrong, because, you know, I'm not Asian at the end of the day. I'm not in the Asian community or the Arab community, so I could be wrong. But I think we as a people, especially diasporans, and I'm going to say that again, especially diasporan Africans, because Africans in Africa, their experience is not the same. And in fact, the only pushback I've had so far about the naming of the Black Muslim Festival is from Africans, because they're like, what is this? What do you mean Black Muslim? We're just Muslim. And I get it, because for you, you're not even Black as far as you're concerned. You're Yoruba, or you're Hausa, or you're Nigerian, or you're whatever. Alhamdulillah, in Africa, your Blackness is not your identity. But in diaspora, when you come out of Africa, all of a sudden, all Yoruba, Hausa, nobody cares. You Black, right? That's it. And even, you know, like that's it. There is none of that kind of distinction. So I think once you start to inhabit Blackness in diaspora, there is a trauma that you inherit. It's not my children, for example. My children's father is Ghanaian, and he grew up in the UK, but he's Ghanaian, and I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I'm mixed. But because, and we lived in Egypt for a good 10, 11 years. So my children didn't know really what it meant to be Black until they come to the UK, and they're like, so this is what Blackness is. This is what it means to be Black. The cultural references, the language, the shared trauma of the Black experience in the UK. They've downloaded it now, you know, and I didn't see that in them in Egypt. But my point is there is more to download, there is more to tap into as part of the Black identity than trauma. But there is still trauma, and we need to be able to address those traumas, because what happens is when you come into the deen and you're told, you know, you're like a newborn baby, right? Everything is kind of wiped clean. Now you're Muslim, and that's the only identity that matters. What happens is all those traumas from absentee fathers, I'm talking about UK here now, absentee fathers, you know, single mother, you know, really harsh realities economically, and whatever else you grew up with, whether it was abuse, whether it was neglect, whether it was self-hatred, all of that stuff, you're Muslim now, Band-Aid. Don't talk about that anymore. Get married to anyone and go forth and multiply. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's so incredulous, because you're Muslim now, you're not Black anymore, except when you go to the masjid and they're like, I don't want Blackie touching me while I'm praying. And you send your kids to the Muslim schools, and it's like, okay, Black children, you're obviously not smarter or anything like that. Black Muslim children face incredible trauma in Muslim schools.
And this is the thing. This is one of the things that we talked about when we had a virtual salon session on homeschooling. One of the panelists was talking about the violence of sending their Black children to Islamic spaces, and specifically to Islamic schools. And that is a conversation that only we can have, because who feels it knows it. So it's one of those things that, you read the program, and like you said, there's a lot of things on there that are interesting to you. That's because that's a reality for you. Someone else who, grows up in, the rural areas in Zimbabwe, for example, it's not their reality. So they don't see any reason to talk about those things. Is that even a thing? When people say, is that even a thing? It's like, if it's a thing for you, you're going to know it's a thing. So even the conversation we're going to have, I want you to come to this actually. On the second weekend, on the family weekend, our panel discussion, is Black Muslim love a thing? And I really want us to have a good one. And Buna Muhammad was like, yes, let's talk about that. Because, if you know Buna Muhammad, he's a bit of a troublemaker. So he likes to come in there and stir the pot a little bit. But we have a conversation that same weekend on interracial relationships and raising biracial children. Because that's a real thing.
Oh, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And there's some stark realities. So I can't wait to see that one. Because I got so tired of seeing all of these feel-good video clips and songs about how they prop up an interracial Muslim couple. It's like Islam doesn't see race. And I'm just like, that is so much garbage. It's just like irritating. It really is. And there are realities that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and at least be aware of, right? At least know this is what you're going into. And I think for my generation, we're trying to heal up in here. We are trying to heal. If you watch the virtual salon session we did on the problems facing Muslim marriages, you will see all of us Gen X's, right, who came to Islam in the 90s. Almost everyone just saying what were we thinking? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What were we thinking? Out here marrying someone after one meeting, out here marrying. Oh
my God! Well, I married my husband after 2 weeks. 2 weeks. But we've been married for 29 years.
It happens. It does happen.
I always say I lucked out. Alhamdulillah, it was a mercy from Allah. It was a total mercy from Allah. I've seen it where it hasn't worked out. Well, it was a different time. We were getting very different messaging. Back then, but there are stark realities, and you're right. We need spaces where we get to discuss these things, because it may not seem like a thing to people that don't have these experiences. It definitely may not seem a thing, and I know that for example, here in the United States, when it comes to diasporic African people, African immigrant Muslims, there's some realities that they had to face because of the realities that we live as African Americans. So I would love for one of those things to come down the pike in your virtual salon.
I think what we're going to be talking about, inshallah, first weekend. So this weekend, we're going to be talking about Black Muslim identity. And I actually wanted to reach out to you. Can you come on that? You're already on that panel. You're already there. But bringing in revert Muslims, born Muslims in diaspora, with minority African Muslims as well, because we have now some amazing people from South Africa who've joined the panels, and their experience is probably very similar to ours in the UK, where they are a minority. Although they're a majority in the country, they're a minority in their faith community. So the faith community is pretty much Indian by and large, and then you have a minority of indigenous South African Muslims. So what we go through in the UK is pretty pretty much what they go through. So even having that conversation about the Black Muslim identity as a South African, so not as a displaced African, but as an indigenous African, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
That's gonna be fire right there.
It's gonna be so good.
Oh, now it starts October 2nd. Okay,
Yep.
I'm going to put a link to register, because you've got to register to get access to all these wonderful panels, workshops, discussions, and everything like that. And it's every weekend until October 25th. So it's 4 weekends, and each weekend has a central theme.
Yes.
Okay, so that is awesome. I cannot wait. Everyone needs to really just go and click those links and register and get ready for some really, really awesome discussions and workshops. And I will put it in with this as well, and I will get it to my editor. And where can people find you?
I'm on all social platforms at Naima B. Robert, and the Black Muslim Festival. We have an Instagram page. It's at Black Muslim Festival. If you want to see the speakers, if you want to see like latest updates, also news articles, people covering us, etc., that's all on the Instagram, inshallah. So yeah, we just want to see everybody come out for this, because it's a historic event actually, and I just feel blessed when I was speaking with my good friend Layinka about this, and she was saying, you know, this really is, for us in the UK, this is history making, because Black Muslims have never taken up space like this inside of anything, certainly not inside Black History Month itself. So inshallah, I pray that Allah rewards all the amazing speakers and that we have a good time. You know, really, me personally, I love thoughtful conversation. I love intelligent discussion. I love energy. I love vibe. I love when people bring their full true selves to the space. And we've got some amazing people to listen to, learn from, explore with. So, you know, just don't miss it, inshallah.
I can't wait. I do not want to miss this. And we here in the United States, Black Muslim United States, definitely need to look at this and see what's going on. I love the fact that this is happening. It's been happening in the United States. Now it's happening in the UK. We're about to blow this up. Well,
yeah. We're Black, it's okay. We're allowed to say things like that.
Jazakallah for joining me. And don't forget to visit us at aboutislam.net. Assalamu alaikum, Naima. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.